Hello everyone. Welcome back to Reddit Night, your favorite Reddit reading channel. Today we are back on our /askreddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe. People no longer bound by their NDA, what can you now disclose? Not my own but from a family friend. Coca-Cola and Pepsi regularly settle disputes behind closed doors on things like employees trying to quit and join the competitor. Their employment contracts have entire clauses stating you cannot be employed by the competing companies even after you quit, so to protect company intel and confidentiality. For example, a Coca-Cola employee feels like he is being mistreated by the company, so he quits and tries to work for Pepsi. So Pepsi's legal team will inform Coca-Cola as soon as they find out, and Coca-Cola will sue the guy for breach of contract, and in return Pepsi will pay them. This is done so Pepsi and Coca-Cola don't sue each other into bankruptcy for breach of laws regarding industrial competition and market regulations. Basically a peace treaty of sorts. Not sure if I'm no longer bound or not, or how common knowledge it is, but living in NYC I was paid to be a fan at a major red carpet movie premiere for a popular film franchise. 100% of the people there were paid to act excited as famous actors, and a very famous director walked out and said hello and did interviews. We were under strict instructions not to let anyone know we were hired. I was part of the beta testing for DC Universe Online. I remember a few missions that were voiced probably just by developers, before they hired the voice actors to do it. I wish I had saved footage of it, but there was one where Supergirl was clearly voiced by a man doing a high-pitched falsetto voice. One of the funniest things I've ever seen. I signed an NDA for a predominant American show where they take a certain type of business on the brink of failure and transform it to save the business. When the producers of the show found out my wife and I both worked there, they tried to fish through our relationship for TV drama. When they found out we have a solid relationship, they tried to convince us to fake our drama with scripted conflict. Long story short, we got fed up and quit during shooting. We were cut from the show. Oh well. GE knowingly put shitty compressors in their fridge units knowing they would fail within a year. Rather than do an extremely expensive recall, they offered to replace the units for free if someone complained, knowing that a large percentage of people just buy a new unit. The shitty compressor was so cheap to make they kept using it in their profile lineup. Used to work in a warehouse where we made feminine hygiene products. The pads came out of one machine into several different branded boxes. Both the nickel gas station pads and the $10 a box pads. Also, we had one product of pads where we imported them from China, then repackaged them into our own boxes. I didn't have a problem with that. The problem I had was the box had an emblem saying Made in America. Would have been okay if it said Assembled in America. But no. Used to work for Disney. They only use Disney employees for the test screenings of Marvel movies, so I got to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, already great, and an early version of Doctor Strange that needed a lot of work. When we were giving feedback to the moderator, the writers were sitting in the back with their heads in their hands looking very defeated. It was a confusing mess, but they fleshed out the characters more, so it was better by the time it was released. Oh, also they used to kill a lot of ducks with pyro at Disney World when they did the Illumination show at Epcot. Shh. A doggo is a doggy daycare in Minnesota that made me sign an NDA for 2 years, saying I was not allowed to talk about the company, mainly, sadly, because they treat the workers and dogs like shit. No care for how many dogs were packed into a room, which is both unsafe for the dogs and the dog attendant. Often I'd be alone in a small room with up to 25 plus dogs, most who only had the most minor of behavioral tests done to see if they would play well in daycare. Owner also tried to get around not paying my workers' comp when I did get injured on the job, and whenever anybody put in their 2 weeks after realizing what a toxic work environment it was, which was often, he would punish them with scheduling them all week or make them open to close 12 hours for all their shifts. If you're in Minnesota and looking for a reputable dog daycare, stay away from a doggo. If in the Twin Cities, I would recommend Dog Days, not perfect, but they actually seem to care. When Chili's first got their Awesome Blossom, there were no machines to cut the onion, so we did it by hand. I had to sign an NDA before they showed me how to do it. This was in November 1990, ft.worth, TX. That a yacht manufacturer advertising a Kevlar hull need only install 2 square per foot of a 3,000 square per foot hull for the statement to be enforceable in court. There are power line transformers that predate World War I still up and running in the US, and the utility companies aren't 100% sure where most of them are. They only find out when one finally dies. Someone over 100 years ago put up a transform that powered telegrams all the way to Twitter. Edit, okay, so people are asking. We'll try to address everything. I worked in the telecom sector. That means I needed to know something about how utility poles operated. On my first day they handed me a binder that was an idiot's guide to utility poles and made me sign an NDA on it. It was dumb because I am sure even back then it was public information. I really do not know more than I stated. I use low VA transformers at work and they are a black box of magic to me. Some people are mentioning PCBs and sure that makes sense. I don't know what they used to cool them 100 years ago. Transformers can last a long time. I have pulled multi-decade ones out of machines, so the idea that one hit the century mark seems reasonable to me and I haven't questioned it. When my internship was over I talked to a professor I knew about this and she mentioned the bird poop thing. I am not sure if this related to the multiple fires in California. My internship was in the Bay Area. And I sorta remember the binder being general, not that one particular area. Forgive me, but this was about 2007, so I can't remember this perfectly. The last day of my university I stuck the binder on the shelf in the engineering section of the library. I am not sure how to locate them or what they even look like. It was just a chart on paper. I admit the idea is really a cool concept, but based on what I am reading here, if you found one, be very wary. I used to work in a call center that had Bayer Advanced, yes, that Bayer, as a client. Bayer knows full well that their neonicotinoid-based pesticide/gardening products killed bees and were responsible for colony collapse. We were instructed to bold-faced deny and or lie to the customer or caller if we were ever asked about it. We were also instructed to lie about the spray nozzles on the bottles. Bayer knew they sucked ass and were almost always completely DOA defective, but they refused to admit it and decided it was cheaper to just keep mailing replacement nozzles. You know those Jackbox party games? They have a database full of about 100 Jackbox games that were pitched but not used, since rejected games often get featured in later party packs. Notably, one of those Jackbox games is called Poop Cake. Won't detail how it works in case it does get released, but there is a rejected Jackbox game called Poop Cake that exists and is officially documented for potential future use. When Google Stadia was just a thing that was being thought about by the company, their totally useful helpful market research demo wasn't even a little indicative of what they were doing. They showed 5 seconds of a cutscene from what I think was an Assassin's Creed game, just a bird flying over a forest, and asked whether it was good. Still bound, can't say where it was. Was terminated 3 times by the same company for a disability. Ended up getting a rather large cash settlement from them to avoid taking them to court. They're bound not to say they terminated me. I gave them notice and the next day I got a letter saying I was fired. That's not how that works, and I'm bound not to report disability discrimination or elder abuse that I witnessed. Funny story, NDAs can't prevent you from making a report as a mandatory reporter to a governing body in my state. I reported them anyway. They tried to claim I violated the NDA, and the governing body in my state went ballistic and slammed them with a 7-figure fine. The CEO, CFO, and CNO were all forced to quit. The place is currently facing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for multiple negligent wrongful deaths. I didn't violate the NDA and kept the settlement. We used the B-2 in the Gulf War in 1990, 6 months after its official first flight, and continued using it under different call signs throughout the early and mid-90s. We did night mid-air refueling missions with it to keep people from seeing it in use. It wouldn't officially enter service until 1997. I had to sign an NDA before working with Sears. It was basically saying I wouldn't talk about the tactics they were using to survive in a changing world. That didn't age well. It was difficult to keep a straight face during orientation, but I knew they were going to be bankrupt in a few years. The writing was on the wall, but at the time I needed the job experience. We also had to sign a non-compete agreement, which I laughed at as well, internally of course. That's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.